In the last video, we noted the relationship between the little horn of chapter 8 that comes out of one of the four notable horns, which are the four generals that arose out of the Grecian kingdom, and the vile person of chapter 11 that comes out of one of the four divisions of the Grecian kingdom, the king of the north. We also saw how this vile person and the little horn refer to the same person, partially fulfilled historically in Antiochus Epiphanes, but ultimately and prophetically points to the personal Antichrist. In this video, we will seek to understand the revelation of the Antichrist through the prophecies set forth by Daniel in relation to the king of the north found in chapter 11, seeking to bring the various parts of the puzzle together. We have seen so far how the first half of Daniel chapter 11 sets up our understanding about the origin of the king of the north and the king of the south. They came out of the Grecian kingdom. From verses 21 onwards, we start to see an emphasis on the king of the north. Verse 21 reveals the king of the north as a vile person, and verse 36, the king that does according to his own will. Well, why is that? As we look deeper, we will see that though they may have historical fulfillment, they ultimately point to the final Antichrist. They reveal to us the nature and the characteristics of the spirit of Antichrist. When we compare the little horn of Daniel chapter 7, the little horn of Daniel chapter 8, the vile person and the willful king of Daniel chapter 11, together with the beast of Revelation chapter 13, we find a striking parallel. Not only that, but the key in bringing them all together is found also in the time element mentioned in each one of them, which ultimately points to the end times. In Daniel chapter 7, we have the terrible beast, Rome, that has 10 horns, and out of the 10 arose a little horn, and uprooted 3 other horns. This little horn shall speak pompous words against the Most High, intend to change times and law, persecute and prevail against the saints for a time, times, and half a time. The time element is 3.5 years. In Daniel chapter 8, we have a little horn that comes out of one of the 4 notable horns which came in the place of the large horn that was broken, the kingdom of Greece. This little horn is seen to cast down some of the host, some of the stars, the place of God's sanctuary, and the truth to the ground. He is also seen to oppose and take away the daily sacrifices. The time element is given in verse 17. Understand, Son of Man, that the vision refers to the time of the end. And verse 19, Look, I am making known to you what shall happen in the latter time of the indignation, for at the appointed time the end shall be. In Daniel chapter 11, the vile person that comes out of the king of the north defiles the sanctuary fortress, takes away the daily sacrifices, places the abomination of desolation, and does wickedly against the covenant, and corrupts with flattery. The time element we note here is the appointed time. Verse 27 says, For the end will still be at the appointed time. Verse 29, At the appointed time he shall return and go towards the south. And now in verse 36, we move on to the willful king of the north, who does according to his own will. This final passage seems to leap over to the time of the end, and the final king of the Syrian division of the Grecian Empire, and the final manifestation of the king of the north, who is an absolute dictator and autocrat. Many see behind this willful king a prophecy of the final Antichrist. The time element is seen in verse 40, which reads, At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, that is, the king of the north. When we get to Daniel chapter 12, which is really a continuation of Daniel chapter 11 about the time of the end, we will find that in Daniel chapter 12, the word time appears 10 times, clearly and plainly describing the same time element of Daniel chapter 11, the time of the end. chapter 12 will ultimately bring the abomination of desolation and the time element together, as it clearly defines what the end of time is. But more on that when we get there. The details of what this king does can be read from verses 36 to 45. But for the purpose of this video, a few have been selected. Number 1, the king shall do according to his will. Number 2, the king shall exalt himself. Number 3, the king shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods. Number 4, the king shall prosper till his wrath has been accomplished. Number 5, this king shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall exalt himself above them all. And number 6, in the end he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. Comparatively, the first beast found in Revelation chapter 13 verses 5 to 8 is given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies against God. He was given to make war with the saints and overcome them. Authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation, and to continue for 42 months, in other words, 3.5 years. We have seen thus far how the vile person and the willful king revealed in the King of the North give us great insight into end times events and the things that pertain to the Antichrist, and how he will defile God's temple and take away the daily sacrifices. But we are not without hope. Jesus said, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." Jesus will return for his glorious, perfect, without wrinkle and spotless church. In the end, the willful king who points to the Antichrist as seen in verse 45 shall come to his end, and no one will help him. Yes, Jesus, the stone cut without hands, will smite the great image of the world kingdoms. Jesus, the Son of Man, will destroy the beastly kingdoms. Jesus, the Prince of Princes, will break the little horn without human means. Behold, when the last trumpet shall finish sounding, the kingdom of this world will become the kingdom of our God and of his Christ. Let us come to Jesus as living stones and as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God, to be built as a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ, which is our reasonable worship and service.